Wow, I just finished watching episode 9, season 2 of From, and there is a lot to say about it. I will try giving you a rundown of my top observations here, but please be mindful that I went lighter on the editing for this video to accommodate for the time constraint of reviewing this episode within 3 hours. Be warned of spoilers ahead. In episode 9, Christy finally gives a clue as to why the episode is titled Ball of Magic Fire. She explains that this term, which she heard in med school, captures the idea that many things in life remain a mystery, even when we might think we understand them. We have grown accustomed to certain phenomena, such as the Earth orbiting around the star we call the Sun, and that star helping sustain life here from about 93 million miles away. Despite our modern scientific understanding, we still barely comprehend how this magic ball of fire actually works. This idea somewhat parallels Gödel's famous incompleteness theorem, which states that there are certain mathematical truths that are impossible to prove within a given logical or mathematical framework. This theorem both highlights and proves the inevitable limits to our knowledge and understanding, regardless of how much scientific progress we make. Additionally, this also parallels what Jim said in season 1 when he was problem solving with Tabitha.
There are plenty of things in the world that don't make sense.
And what he said in season 2 about how engineers design things that seem impossible.
We design it to do things that seem impossible.
To shock people. The more impossible it seems, the stronger the shock. This also connects to Jade's description of his software company and how he built a quantum computing chip with incredible potential out of his imagination. And it might not stop there. Here's a piece of analysis from my previous videos that I had omitted. When music boxes first came out in the 1800s, they were seen as magical by the public, who were unable to comprehend the complex mechanics behind their inner workings, making music boxes very alluring for people, which partly reflects Jim's comments as an engineer about how the town might just be a highly sophisticated and engineered environment designed to seem impossible and shock people. The goal of the ballerina music boxes was to simulate reality via mechanical automation. The closest counterpart to this in the modern world will be simulation theory and artificial intelligence. Also interesting to know that early music boxes were predominantly designed by clock or watchmakers, which makes one wonder about the possible significance of the clock we saw in the caves in relation to the music box, and the many references about time we've also seen in the show. Moving on to Kenny and Sara, we heard Sara interestingly say that something feels wrong about the town, and that it also felt wrong in the forest. We've previously discussed how the forest seems to be closing in on the town, judging by Victor's comments of the trees moving. And now with Sara's comment, I began to consider that that might not be just a physical approximation, but also a psychic one, noting how the nightmares of the forest seem to be spilling into the town. The reason why I use this language is because Sara suggested that maybe the town does more than just feed on pain, and noted how her brother Nathan was terrified of cicadas as a kid and thought of them as monsters. Once again, we see evidence of the creators juxtaposing or flipping symbolism in creative ways, noting how cicadas are predominantly viewed as positive symbols across cultures, and one that is connected to rebirth and transformation, with the latter maybe being a potential clue as to what may be one of their effects. Sara suggested that maybe the forest consumes the fears of those who died in the town, and this might also serve as evidence for my psychological interpretation of the forest as the forest of the unconscious, according to Jung, where our repressed fears and emotions, as well as hidden aspects of who we are, live, with the forest in the show acting as some kind of collective unconscious. I would also like to point out that the cyclical nature of cicadas, which is highly noted in science, might also capture the theme of time and clockwork cycles we've seen in the show, which gives emphasis to the observations I noted about the music box and clock makers. It also seems that the cicadas may be real, physically, judging by the audible noise and some of the shots of the cicadas flying towards Colony House. But it seems that there may also be a psychic aspect to them, just like we saw in season 1 with the spiders that appeared to trick Boyd into thinking that his wife was trapped in the spider web. And I think it is great that we're seeing this consistency when it comes to elements that originate from the forest, implying once again that they're psychic elements, and that the forest is a hidden psychic landscape or space. Going back to Kenny and Sara, it was nice to see Sara finally confront Kenny as she fleshes out her emotions and regret in front of him. The notable scene here is how Sara tries to play Russian roulette with Boyd's spare gun, assuming that this might replicate the mechanics of the box, where it is the town that actually kills you in a way, via the monsters. and we see that when she pulls the trigger, she locks out. Judging how there seem to be 6 chambers in the gun cylinder, that would have been about a 33% chance of firing a bullet. But Sara might have interpreted this as the town sparing her, which makes Boyd's gun a literal spare gun. We see Kenny here then rapidly take the gun away. Another significant part here is that this event may have finally helped Kenny realize how truly broken Sara is, and hopefully help start the transition of their current relational dynamics into healing. Moving on to Boyd, we see that after he rescues Donna from Randall, we end up with Donna, Boyd, Jim, and Randall finding shelter inside the RV. We see Boyd creating his silver bullets out of the bile he increased extracted from Smiley's gallbladder. In this part of the episode, we also saw the monsters stopped in front of the RV, something Donna noted they never did before, and the music box starts playing again through the broken radio, and everyone in the RV can hear it. It is then that they decide to make an escape before whatever's coming arrives, and we see 3 key things happening in the process. Boyd sees an apparition of his wife telling him to come back to her, and I'll err on the side of caution here and just say that Boyd's wife, or whatever that was, didn't seem peaceful in this scene, borrowing Tabitha's words about the ghost children. When Boyd runs out of the RV after hearing Donna, he shoots at the monsters, but they seem immune to the silver bullets. My suspicion here is that what made the worms work was the ritualistic aspect of my blood is your blood now. So either that is what is missing from the equation here, or the bile just doesn't have the effect Boyd expected it to have. The third thing was how Randall was overtaken by the cicadas, which entered his body through his mouth. Judging by what the cicadas did to Reggie's wife, which almost resembled what the monsters do to their victims, we're also left to wonder whether these cicadas once again just represent a rebirth or different manifestation of Smiley. In this episode, we saw Ethan truly expressing he's afraid for the first time, which is rather natural and even healthy for him to express and feel this way given the circumstances. We saw Victor mention to Ethan in an attempt to console him that his mother told them that we can change how our stories end, that we write them. But we happen to see Ethan unnecessarily roasting Victor about this comment. But I think this finally articulates another idea we can find in the show, that is the autobiographical nature of our identities. Something that has been found consistently across the existing body of psychological research on the subject. Who we are, our sense of identity, can be viewed as a side effect or emergent phenomenon of the ongoing narrative we write about our lives. For example, my name is Victor, I was born in PA, but grew up in this nightmare town. I like peaches, drawing, and oranges that are not dry. I don't like dark places, etc. The story we tell ourselves about ourselves. Research even suggests that one of the possible reasons why we can't remember our memories as infants or infant amnesia is that our ability to retrieve those memories is correlated with the emergence of language and subsequent sense of self we develop as we grow up. These observations illustrate the power of the words we use to describe our own autobiographies, and how it impacts who we are and how we see and interact with the world. This ties to the psychological growth or self-realization allegory that I've been explaining that the show represents, according to my subjective interpretation. In this part of the episode, we also saw Julie being affected by what we presume is the psychic effect of the cicadas. The other person affected by them back at Colony House is Marielle, but in her case, we were able to see, likely from her perspective, actual cicadas entering through the window and covering her body. But Christy and Boyd were unable to see them. Marielle's eyeballs then become white, and we see Christy impotent and unable to help her. So we can see how the rhyme that says they come for 3 may have referred to Julie, Randall, and Marielle, but we still don't know whether what's happening to them is exactly the same or will have the same outcome as what happened to Reggie's wife. An interesting observation at Colony House was how Tilly tells Fatima that she'll be a great mother, and Fatima is confused as to how she knows this. Tilly explains that she just knows because she herself is a mother and has many grandchildren. But that didn't feel convincing enough as an explanation. There is actually some evidence in the show that the people of the town are being tested. By whom or what or for what purpose, we don't know yet. The interesting thing though is that if we do entertain the idea of the town being part of our research experiment, it would be reasonable to expect research allies inside the experimental environment to ensure that the proper experimental conditions are properly configured, or that the experiment runs smoothly. In research, we call those individuals confederates, which I think is a very ironic pun given the many references to the Civil War we saw in the show, And as we know, even though it be an entirely different context, the soldiers who fought to uphold slavery during the American Civil War were known as Confederates. Just a fun observation and not a theory in any shape or form, for those who might think it is. In this part of the episode, Elgin finally remembers his dream, and it was about a boy in white, which we presume is the one we've seen, saying the words from Kenny's phone call over and over. They come for 3, unless you stop the melody. Baghdad then realizes that those lines are from an old nursery rhyme, a very creepy one I have to say, that her grandmother used to sing to her. And Boyd finally learned that he's going to be a grandfather.
Ay, caramba!
In reference to the nursery rhyme, I suspect that, and this could make sense given it's a nursery rhyme, that the words they touch, they break, they steal might refer to child behaviors, noting how these behaviors would not be uncommon in children as they still have undeveloped moral boundaries. And we also saw the characters touching and breaking things, which in a way may have paralleled that rhyme. Even Boyd breaking Smiley, a part of the town, with his blood transfusion might be a reference to this. Maybe Julie stole Elgin's heart. We'll explore more these ideas later on. I've been thinking about creating a YouTube podcast for these and other shows for subscribers. It will be mostly audio format, but my episodic analysis will be much longer, much more in-depth, and much more quickly available. I will also still continue creating standard videos about the series. And would you like that? Please share your feedback in the comments, as it is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel and would like to see more content, please make sure to hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and hit the like button. Till next time.